This is going to be a very interesting video because today's watch kind of looks like it was crafted in a futuristic racing simulator. Hey, there you are, and welcome to My Dude Watch. My name is Jason, and today we're talking about the CIGA Design Vector. This is something you don't want to miss. This is going to be fun. You know the deal. Grab a snack, pull up a chair, and let's talk watches. And before we walk through this watch, I want to thank CIGA Design for sponsoring today's video. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you already know CIGA Design is not afraid to do things differently. And in a watch world that sometimes feels a little repetitive, that is refreshing. And with that said, let's start as we always do with the tale of the tape. So the Vector is a racing-inspired skeleton automatic, which is available in multiple case materials, including the stainless steel, which you see here, but also in titanium and forged carbon fiber. Now, this unique piece measures in around 44 millimeters right across the top, 50 millimeters lug to lug, and a wearable 13 millimeters thick. You get a clear AR-coated dome sapphire crystal, a generous amount of Swiss superluminova on the hands, and check this out. You get an in-house, self-developed automatic movement, the CD02X. And you also get 50 meters of water resistance. Okay, let's go ahead and start breaking down the actual watch itself, and we'll begin right here with the case profile. Now, this is where the Vector immediately starts showing personality. Here from the side profile, you can really see how layered the case construction is. There's a very architectural feel to the entire watch, with sharp transitions, step surfaces, and angular cutouts that almost make the watch feel engineered more than traditionally styled. The finishing also works really well here. CIGA didn't over-polish anything. Instead, you get a much more industrial presentation with blasted surfaces, contrasting edges that fit the racing-inspired identity perfectly. And what surprised me is that the watch wears a little cleaner from the side than I expected, especially considering how visually aggressive the dial is. Now, moving over to the crown, you've got a deeply grooved design here that's easy to grip and fits naturally into the overall mechanical aesthetics of the watch. It doesn't feel like an afterthought at all. It actually looks integrated into the architecture of the case itself. Around back, the exhibition case back continues the entire theme of the watch. Seeing the movement from both sides helps reinforce the entire motion and mechanics identity of the Vector. Now, moving up to the top, this domed sapphire crystal was absolutely the right choice for this design. Because with a watch that's layered with dimensions like this, the crystal almost acts like a viewing window into the architecture underneath. Now, depending on the angle and the lighting, this watch completely changes character. Shadows shift, the bridges catch light differently, and the dial kind of feels alive. Maybe calling it structure is the better word here because traditional dial design rules really don't apply to the Vector. This is a heavily open worked layout, but thankfully it still feels organized. Look, the skeletonization doesn't come across random or chaotic. Everything you see here is intentional. It was designed with balance in mind. You've got layered bridges and circular elements that almost resemble turbine blades or components from a high-end racing machine. There's depth everywhere you look, and the negative space becomes just as important as the actual material. Now, I have to be honest, the handset works pretty well here, and that's important because skeleton watches can oftentimes completely lose legibility. But the hands on the Vector really stand out enough against the architecture underneath that reading the time is still manageable, especially once your eyes kind of adjust to the layout. And that's important because skeleton watches oftentimes completely lose their legibility. I think it was a really smart move as well to use that green superluminova because it gives the watch just enough contrast and visual energy without overpowering the design. Now, one of the stars of the show regarding this Vector is CIGA's self-developed CD02X automatic movement, and I think that matters here more than it would on a normal watch. Because with a watch this visually focused, the movement becomes part of the experience. This is not one of those watches where the caliber is hidden away behind the scenes. This movement is the design language. I really like how the movement presentation fits the watch extremely well. The bridges, the open work, the rotation, and the balance, it all contributes to the feeling of a controlled mechanical motion. This movement is cohesive with the watch instead of simply inserted into it. Now, moving over to the strap, this was absolutely the correct move. A leather strap would have completely changed the personality of this watch, but this rubber keeps everything sporty, modern, and performance-oriented. It's 22 millimeters here at the lugs, and it's a quick change system, so you can switch it out if you prefer other options. I got to admit, too, it's very comfortable. I got to say, it's soft enough to contour nicely around your wrist, but it's structured enough to feel premium. And visually, it helps ground the watch because there is a lot going on with this dial. Now, as far as the lume goes, this is not meant to be a torch. The green superluminova accents do exactly what it's meant to do. It adds visibility, some nighttime character without turning the watch into a technical toolpiece. The green lume color also fits the futuristic motorsports vibe perfectly. Now, let's talk about the wrist presence because this is where I think the Vector really becomes interesting. This watch absolutely gets attention, and despite the aggressive design language, it actually wears more natural than I expected. The circular case shape really helps here because it keeps the watch from feeling too experimental or awkward. It still feels wearable, it still feels functional. You have made it to that part of the video where we put it all together and try to make sense of it all. We like to call this gripes and likes. There really isn't a specific gripe because people that buy this style of watch, they kind of know what they're getting into regarding legibility. You can read the time with this watch. Just finding the time at a glance is a little more challenging than a more traditional dial. And now the likes, and I absolutely love that this feels like an original watch. And you know, sometimes that becomes increasingly rare in the affordable watch space where so many watches are heavily inspired by existing luxury designs. I also think the layered architecture looks fantastic under lighting. This is one of the most visually and dynamic watches we've had on the channel in a very long time. Every angle gives you something a little bit different. You know, I also want to mention that I really appreciate that CIGA is fully committed to this design language. They didn't play around with it, they didn't keep it safe, and this watch is exactly what it should be. So who is this watch for? I think this is for the collector who already owns the classics. This is for the guy who already has enough dive watches. It's for the guy who has enough field watches or vintage inspired pieces. This is for someone who wants something that feels modern and different. This is also for someone who appreciates industrial design, mechanical art, architecture, automotive inspiration, and movement and motion. I think younger collectors especially are going to connect with this watch because it doesn't feel trapped in nostalgia. It feels forward-looking. Well, there you go, the brand new and refreshing CIGA Design Vector. We'll put links in the description just in case you want to go there, check it out, and see if this is something you would like to add into your collection. Hey, you made it to the end of another video. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please take the time to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It'll only take you a second, but it really does help. All right, we checked the time and it is time to wrap it up. So we will close the show. My name is Jason with My Dude Watch. We'll do it all again next time. But wait, don't forget, dudes can't be late.